Hello everyone, my name is JD.
And this is Logan.
And this is the WireTap brought to you by the Conservative Wire. And in case if you haven't noticed, we got a little bit of an upgrade here. Logan is using the snowball, which we've been using for the last 13 of our videos.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this is the episode number 14.
We're over
and I
a
mean,
baker's dozen.
that's also what we used for all three of the podcasts. So really, this is what the 17th video that we're putting up here on YouTube, and that little blue snowball has been helping us all the way throughout there. But this is the MXL V67 that I'm using, so we both have our mics. So this is probably a welcome addition to those of us who are following us on SoundCloud. And even on YouTube, I'm sure that the audio, you thought could have been much better. And we agreed. We just didn't have the resources to get it. But this last week has been just an absolute degree. I mean, we just degraded to absolute stupidity.
I mean, it's a big negative on the week.
I mean, it went from the media last week with Brett Kavanaugh, and the New York Times was all over this story.
Absolute
to
botched.
Where he allegedly put his penis in a girl's hand. I mean, not to be graphic, but that's what the allegation was. And I'm not sure how you accidentally do that.
I don't know.
I'm not really sure how you do that. But that was their allegation.
It's Brett Kavanaugh.
It's Brett Kavanaugh.
We all know
Satan
what he's
himself,
like.
Satan himself. And then 2 days later, they had to put a retraction of that. And then this week, it is the Democrats in power that people actually elected to office. There were elections. There were debates, maybe, in some cases. There was some sort of opposition. There was a Republican who ran against these people and lost. And they brought an impeachment inquiry against Trump. And I mean, really, I guess you can say the only person who did that was Nancy Pelosi.
She went around
because
everyone.
She went around the Democrat Party. She violated the rules and proceedings for the House of Representatives for bringing up articles of impeachment and inquiry. I mean, I guess that's what this is. It's not yet articles of impeachment.
Basically, with impeachment, there has to be a vote every single step of the way. Mm-hmm. You can't just go out there as Speaker Pelosi, Speaker Ryan, whoever you are, and say, we're opening an impeachment inquiry today.
Yeah. There has to be that consensus all the way through as you're doing something like this. And that was not evident at all. That just flat did not happen. And I mean, these people have been elected to Congress, and they were so dogged about this. They were so excited about this because they finally thought that they had Trump. They finally thought that they had him. And they thought this so many times before. And the best way to describe this is a Wile E. Coyote cartoon with Roadrunner. Because it is exactly like this every single time. They think that they have finally...
They've got the stuff.
They've finally made the perfect plan. They've painted the side of the rock face to make it look like a tunnel. And the Roadrunner is just going to run right into that. And then the
anvil's going to fall.
The Coyote is going to be able to get him. Wile E. Coyote is going to be able to get him. And he finally will catch the Roadrunner. And every time that something goes wrong. And it happened again here because you had this whistleblower who comes out.
Hasn't been named.
We don't even know who this is. Well, I mean, they'll come out eventually.
Republicans are demanding the identity of him today.
You know that he'll come out eventually. He or she will come out eventually because then they'll get a book deal and they'll be a panelist on CNN and all the rest, because that's what normally happens in these kind of things. But you had this whistleblower come out and say that Trump was essentially establishing a quid pro quo with the Ukrainian president to investigate the son, Hunter Biden,
yes,
the son of current presidential Democratic frontrunner and presidential candidate Joe Biden. And so Trump said, okay, bet. I mean, that's basically what he said. He's like, okay, well, guess what? We have a transcript. I'll release the transcript. And the Democrats basically said, okay, we'll call your bluff on it. Trump releases the transcript, and there's nothing. There's nothing in there.
Yeah.
About it. And the Democrats are still going to run with this. And I have the actual part of the transcript that even has anything to do with Joe Biden. It is the only part of this transcript that has anything to do with Joe Biden. They talk a little bit prefacing this with speaking about Rudy Giuliani. And I'll read it here in a minute. First, I just want to note that we were going to get this transcript from the New York Times, and they hid that behind a paywall. I'm not going to subscribe to the New York Times. Just know that. Just to read the transcript. I'm not wasting my $2 to become a subscriber to the New York Times. I'm not doing it.
Quite literally the worst thing to ever put a paywall on.
And so I am going to CNN instead to get this. And this is the part that is in reference to Joe Biden. This is what Trump says. He says the other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that, so whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me.
And it's true. Biden essentially, in a way, did stop the prosecution because at least the allegations that are against Biden, you could say, is that he threatened to withhold military aid to Ukraine, who's currently in their war with Russia, to withhold our military aid from Ukraine to get that prosecutor fired, which was successful.
Yeah.
The prosecutor was fired in 2015, I believe.
And I'm not sure exactly what the quid pro quo exactly is that the whistleblower said that.
I believe
was it the withholding of military funds?
We would withhold military
funds. And to my knowledge, the Ukrainian officials really had no knowledge of that even being a thing.
They said they didn't get that hint. They didn't believe that there was a secret coded message.
Because to my knowledge, and I had read through this before we did the show, this is the only thing in this entire transcript that references Biden or his son.
That's the only
That
part.
is the only part that references Biden. I'll read it again here. The other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me.
It would be interesting to look into that.
I will say, I didn't really think anything of this before, but with some of the articles that I'm going to bring forward here in just a moment, right after that, right after he says Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it, ... I imagine that ellipses is going to be like the missing minutes on the Watergate tapes.
Yeah.
It's going to be those missing minutes on those on the Watergate tapes. That ellipses. Oh, what's in that ellipses that was there? Because that's already what they're doing.
That'll blow up into the story. It won't do anything. That can't be held up in a court of law.
Because I mean that's what they're going to go after. That's what they're going to go for. Because I have a story here from CBS. Why the transcript of Trump's Ukraine call isn't a complete transcript. And I mean, factually, they're right, but the framing of that from the headline makes it seem like that what has been released isn't the true conversation. It's not really what was said. There's something being hidden.
It's a cover-up.
It's part of a cover-up. It's something that only the most secret of people can know, and the deep state. But here's the thing. The full transcript doesn't exist.
This isn't even a transcript.
The full transcript likely does not exist. And the framing of this from CBS and the other mainstream media news sources have done the same thing. Of Vox, I remember seeing too, along the same line of basically this transcript is illegitimate. And I mean, they're saying this because it did not give them what they want. It did not give them the silver bullet. That's why they're saying it.
I want to know who legitimately in the world goes to Vox for their true news.
I don't know. But because it did not give them the silver bullet that they wanted, that's why they're framing it like this. They're like, oh, there has to be something more. Like they did with the Mueller report. Robert Mueller, after he released his report, said, that's all I'm going to say about it. Anything that I have to say is in the report. That still wasn't enough.
That's why he testified.
They had to call him up to testify. Yeah, 3 months later. That's why they had to do that. Because there just had to be something more. They wasted their time reading the entire thing on the floor of
the House.
Was it the House?
It was the House.
Yeah, it would have been the
Mitch
House.
McConnell would never allow something like that.
Yeah, it would have been the House.
Moscow.
You had all of these Hollywood celebrities that were doing these readings of the Mueller report, and it's like,
well, when you're not acting, you have to fill your time.
It's like, guys, it doesn't. Reading it over and over does not change what it says.
Okay. I can tell you,
no matter how many times you read it, it's the same words.
The majority of the American public did not read that and likely did not care about it.
And likely did not
They
care
just took the headline that it had nothing in it, and that's what they've went with.
And they're perfectly happy doing that. But that's the way that these things, CBS in this case, is framing this, that it's not legitimate. It's not a legitimate transcript. And specifically on the transcript, it notes that basically that it says a note at the bottom of the Mr. Trump memo points out that a number of factors can affect the accuracy of the record, such as poor phone connections, accents, and the use of interpreters. Basically, this whole transcript is based off of those who are in the Situation Room while the president is making the phone call.
Yeah.
And the people in that room, there are people there, like court reporters almost, who are sitting there making a transcript of the call on the fly. But that kind of stuff is, it's not a verbatim transcript.
It's not exact.
It's not an exact wording, but you will get the general consensus, the
gist of the conversation.
Yeah, the gist of the conversation. You will get the general message out of that. It's not like anything's going to be massively changed or anything like that. There might be some words missed, some words that aren't quite right, but it is what the conversation is. There's nothing in there that is not talked about, and there's nothing that is not talked about that is not in there unless it's highly classified, that kind of stuff. Maybe it's not in the transcript.
It's obvious that the typewriter guy ran out of ink right when that ellipses happened, and he just had to put ... refill his ink.
Also, according to this article, it does note the fact that presidential phone calls began being recorded around the time of FDR, and after Nixon and the whole Watergate thing and his scandals,
moved away
he
from that.
decided to stop recording all of his phone calls, and since then, nobody has. Since Nixon, nobody has recorded their phone calls. And I mean, let's just go down the line. Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama. I mean, none of them has recorded their phone calls. There's, very far and few in between. And it does note also something that I found interesting, which I do remember, is that it does seem, it says Mr. Trump has seemed to imply that he recorded some of his White House conversations, though this has never been proven.
I would feel like if you were having a big time conversation, if you're calling up
it's possible.
Putin for some reason,
it's possible.
Then I would feel like you would want to record those conversations.
And I haven't looked into this, but I imagine that there are probably far and few in between. But there are probably phone calls that maybe have been recorded by other presidents. But as a general policy, They don't record their phone calls anymore. They do exactly what this is they have people in the Situation Room who are transcribing the call as it's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they do. And you have good old Dianne Feinstein. This comes from The Hill. She comes out and she is demanding the word-for-word transcript of the Trump phone call to the Ukrainian president. Yeah. That's her word. That is her quote, word-for-word transcript.
She has been in Washington long enough. She knows the policies that they don't do that.
She knows. She's been in Washington since 1947. She knows.
She saw when FDR recorded the first conversation.
She saw all of this. She has been here since Woodrow Wilson. I mean, she's been here a long time.
She's just playing into the media narrative
she's just playing into
it's not all been released.
Yeah. She's just feeding the fire because it gets her attention. Because, quite frankly, you a lot of times forget that Dianne Feinstein exists.
Yeah, like the last time that we saw her was the Kavanaugh hearings, wasn't it?
I think so.
That's the last time she's been in the news.
And I mean, she way back in the day made a big stink about guns. I mean that was her big thing, was guns.
Wasn't that after Parkland, maybe?
I think so, because I mean that was the last major time. She had made a lot of statements back in the heyday with Obama and the beginnings of Obama and during the Tea Party. Mm-hmm. She made a lot of statements then. But there for a while, she just was kind of cruising. You didn't hear a whole lot from her. But thus she has thrust herself. Returned. She has returned, purple pantsuit and all, back into the limelight, calling for the word-for-word transcript. And this comes off... and this is The Hill, it says that the whistleblower complaint tied to Trump suggests that an official word-for-word transcript of the call was produced. That is Feinstein's quote of the whistleblower. She says that the whistleblower implies that, and she goes on to say, if so, it should be provided to Congress for review. Congress has a constitutional oversight duty. It's important that we understand who took actions to hide details of the call with Zelensky and how high those actions reached. So, like we said, that word-for-word transcript does not exist. It physically does not exist. It's not like it's locked away in the basement of the National Archives or something. That phone call transcript physically just does not exist. More than likely. A word-for-word transcript likely has not been produced or has not ever been made and is nowhere to be found because it does not exist.
If Trump already releases this, I feel like he would probably just say, if we have a full transcript, just release that.
Yeah.
Because you know that you're going to go
Trump has already taken the step to release that transcript.